Cheesecake Factory, ticker symbol cake on this one. Woo, man, is this one of my favorite stocks in the market right now, okay? So, Cheesecake Factory trades disgustingly cheap. Forward P on this one of about 12. They have a dividend yield of 3% plus that gets paid out to me, right? Market cap of about $1.7 billion. Now, when you own Cheesecake Factory, a lot of people think you only own the Cheesecake Factory business, right? Which is obviously a very recognized, almost one of the most famous kind of sit-down restaurant brands you can possibly imagine out there. But the Cheesecake Factory is just one component of this business. They also own North Italia, which this is, you want to know where the major growth is going to come for this business model over the next 10 years, North Italia. They're going to go from having, a few dozen of these restaurants to having hundreds of these restaurants, likely within the next, I would say, 7 to 10 years roughly. And so this is where a lot of the growth is going to come. The North Italia, I've been to probably at least 3 or 4 of the locations now over time, and I've been multiple times. The food's always amazing. The service is always amazing. They just knock it out of the ballpark, and they're ridiculously busy. I called at 5 o'clock this past Saturday to try to go to a North Italia in Scottsdale. Literally, they weren't even taking walk-ins at that point in time. They're like, we're already completely booked up. This opportunity is ridiculous for North Italia over time, okay? Now, they also own a brand called Culinary Dropout, which I still have to experience this one. It looks like it's going to be a potential next major hit. They also own a brand called Flower Child, which has some pretty big opportunities. And they own a Mexican restaurant called Blanco, which I've been to, and definitely very, very good. So the beautiful thing with Cheesecake Factory, they own a few other brands as well, by the way. But the beautiful thing with Cheesecake Factory is it's not just a company that is reliant on Cheesecake Factory. They have these other very successful brands that they're going to be able to continue building and adding locations over the next many, many years, okay? No, the most beautiful thing for Cheesecake Factory right now is inflation's coming down. It's coming down substantially. Now, obviously, this could be seen as a good thing for consumers, which, yeah, 100%. But for Cheesecake Factory, they got hit about as hard as you could possibly get hit from inflation. A lot of the Cheesecake Factory locations are in California, and natural gas prices last year went disgustingly high, even into the very beginning of 2023, right? And so Cheesecake Factory got destroyed by natural gas prices that went to, literally natural gas, 3x to 4x in a matter of 12 to 18 months. It was absolutely insane, right? Natural gas has come back down to reality now, which is going to go from, this was a huge, let's call it headwind for Cheesecake Factory, to now a tailwind, okay? Because most of their restaurants run on natural gas, okay? Now, also, their kitchens and whatnot, right? Food inflation went sky high. That's come back down to reality. And wages have shown definitely some weakening recently. And so this whole inflation coming down, it's a great thing for Cheesecake Factory. They're going to benefit as much as anybody, and you're likely going to see their margins expand rapidly over the next several quarters, along with their earnings per share. Now, the company's led by David Overton, right, who's basically, started this company and built it into, the beast that it is today. I'm very happy with having him lead this company. He's done a terrific job, and I think he's positioning this company for the next 10, 20 years of massive success. This is one of those stocks I can feel like I can buy, throw into the filing cabinet, and regardless of if there's a recession, no recession, if good economies, bad economies, it's a stock I feel like I can hold and collect my dividend yield and collect my dividend money and just, get that prospering over time. Now, in regards to Cheesecake Factory, right, their earnings per share is going to skyrocket like insane over this next, couple of years here. But we're trading at about 12 PE based upon what 2023 numbers should be. We're at under a 10 on 2024 numbers. I mean, the stock's disgustingly undervalued right now. Disgustingly undervalued. This one for me is a buy all the way to $48 a share. So this is one of those stocks I'm going to likely be buying for at least the remainder of this year. A potential of a continuation of buying into 2024. But yeah, I should be buying this one all the way into at least the end of this year, okay? Now, Yardini. I haven't shown you Yardini charts in a while here, and I thought this was a perfect day to kind of pull this up for you guys. Here we are. Large caps still trading rich, but they've been trading rich for a while now at this point in time. Mid caps, in terms of S&P 400 mid caps, still trading undervalued. Small caps still trading exceptionally undervalued, right? We're up a bit from the lows that we reached back at the end of 2022, but still very, very low in terms of valuation compared to, past time periods, which means the real opportunities of this market remain in mid caps and small caps going forward, right? And it doesn't mean other stock prices can't perform amazing in the short term, right? You can have some wildish moves, like obviously Apple has been kind of a wildish move because you've got a company that's fundamentals are getting worse while the stock price just continues to boom. Whereas you got companies like Meta that deserve to have their stock price go up because their fundamentals are getting far superior. Their earnings per share is going to take off like a rocket ship. The revenue growth is about to reaccelerate in a massive way. So you have certain stocks that deserve to be going up. You have other stocks that honestly just don't deserve to be going up and are going up exceedingly fast. And so the real opportunities can remain in this market, mid caps and small caps. How long that remains to be seen, right? And you look at something like this, right? This was very interesting. Small cap stocks are trading at their biggest discount to large caps in over 20 years. The only larger valuation gap over the past 50 years was during the dot-com bust. Think about that for a moment, folks. Now, the interesting thing about this is, at some point, this is going to break, obviously, right? These trends can only stay alive for so long, and then they break. The interesting thing is, if you look back at past times, there's usually an epic 2 to 3 year move in relation to large and smalls kind of getting back in, let's call it in where they should be. And you look at this is around 2000, 2001 here. Look at the move between about 2000, 2001 and 2003. I mean, my gosh, just an epic move there. Now, there's two ways you can get there. One is all these large cap stocks coming down in valuation, right? The Apples and Microsofts and all those guys. The other is just small caps really go on a tear, while it's called a lot of the big techs, a lot of the large caps just kind of like do okay, right? And so that's really going to come down to how the economy does. If we do ever enter a big recession, whether that is at the end of this year or next year or something like that, then it will be more of like, I think, the large caps coming down in valuation substantially, and let's call it the smalls just kind of hanging in there. If we don't have some sort of epic recession, then what I believe is going to ultimately pull out, basically happen over the next few years is the smalls would run like crazy, and the large would kind of, let's just call it lag the market a bit. And you would see the actual outperformance in the smalls. So, yeah, interesting time period in the market, certainly. But we know where the opportunities are. It's just the problem is, to predict exactly when this is going to move is impossible. You can't predict if it's going to move tomorrow or next month or 6 months from now or a year from now or 2 years from now or 3 years from now. At some point, this is unsustainable. That's all we do know. And so at some point, this market breaks. At some point, smalls are going to catch up to where they should be, which is this red line. When that happens, it remains to be seen, folks, okay? But it will happen. That's something we do know. It will happen. When these trends in the market, they go for a bit, and then they break, okay? Now, SoFi had some pretty interesting stuff in regards to them today. And I know this is way wider reaching than SoFi, right? But the Supreme Court strikes down Biden's student loan forgiveness plan. Now, this is very intriguing, right? Because this is something that ultimately could affect the economy negatively, because obviously if you're just going to pay off a bunch of people's student loans, I mean, that's going to boost the economy at the end of the day, right? It's and some people say that's buying votes. You can say whatever you want. It might be. That's fair. But at the end of the day, like if you tell people you're going to lower their taxes, if you tell people you're going to pay off loans, we could make arguments that it's kind of buying votes, right? But at the end of the day, you do something like this, it's a boom for the economy, and something like this doesn't go through, it holds back the economy, right? I mean, imagine if the government just said, you know what, no one has to pay their mortgages anymore. I think it's wrong that you guys have to pay mortgages. You don't have to pay it anymore. So we're going to pay it for you. I mean, can you imagine the boom that the economy would go on? Shoot, if I didn't have to pay my mortgage and you guys didn't have to pay your mortgage, wouldn't that be beautiful? And they're like, you know what? We don't think it's fair that you have to pay your rent. We'll pay your rent for you. I mean, gosh, imagine if you don't have to all of a sudden pay your rent. And you know what, that car bill, everybody deserves to have a car. So you know what, we're going to cover that car payment for you as well. Well, gosh, we all have a lot more money to spend out there in the economy, right? And so I do think it matters in a few different ways. Now, in regards to SoFi in this situation, right, there's a lot of people that thought this might happen, and so SoFi was going to be a huge play. So what happened with SoFi stock here today? Well, the stock actually went down about 3-4% here today, right? And at the end of the day, a situation like this, it's the famous saying in the stock market, buy the rumor, sell the news. Because a lot of people got excited about SoFi going into this and thought, the stock would boom today because the Supreme Court's going to strike this down and, it's going to be a huge boom. And I saw a lot of people making predictions that SoFi was going to be up anywhere between 8% and 15% today. And for the stock to finish obviously pretty negative, it just kind of shows you like the thought process. And, a lot of times people try to outsmart the market. And, if you're playing these things from a short-term perspective, it's just usually not worth it. If you want to be on SoFi for the next 3, 5, 7, 10 years, fair play. But the problem is a lot of these people play things like call options and, short-term call options and thinking they're going to be right in this situation. And then it turns out to be, what happened actually happened, but it didn't move the stock. That's something I had to learn the hard way back in like 2015. I was doing a lot of earnings trades and things like that, a lot of swing trades, and I'd be right about the situation, let's say a situation like this. And, I would play, let's say something on margin, I'm putting $100,000 in the stock. And then the stock would go down. And I'm like, what the hell, man? I was right about the thing, but then the stock didn't move the way. It's more complicated than that, man. So yeah, many times you try to outsmart the market in these short-term things. It's a lot harder than it looks. Let's just call it that, okay?